Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tiffany. I'm an expat living in Greece. And I get questions all the time about what it's like to live here, what are things that people should know before they move here, and that's what I'm going to talk about. All the things that you should consider before you move to Greece. Two big things are patience and persistence. And while those things are not tangible things, they're very important. Even in the Greek language, these two words sound very similar. Patience is epomi, and persistence is epomi. Very subtle. And apologies to the Greeks that if I got that slightly wrong. I just learned those words this week. What do I mean by patience and persistence? Well, I'll give you a really good example. When I came here, I had a national visa, and then you have a year to apply for the residence permit. And because of all of the things that happened in 2020, things got a little bit delayed, which is understandable. But then I had to continuously check that when the ministry was going to open. And then I had to hound my lawyer to call them and check and see if we could get an appointment. And actually what ended up happening is my visa was set to expire on August 24th. And I got a call from my lawyer about 3 days before saying that my appointment had been set to apply for my residence permit on August 25th. Not only did I need to be patient, I needed to be persistent with the lawyer. And it continued even after I got the appointment and had the appointment, because then I had to keep following up both with my lawyer and the ministry to actually get the physical residence permit. So things take longer than you expect, and they don't always go the way that you expect them to go. So if you don't have those things, or if you're unwilling to be patient or persistent, then moving to Greece may not be for you. Now let's get into some of the more practical day-to-day things that you should know before you move here. One of the big things is housing. Housing in Greece can be difficult to find, particularly in Athens. Finding what you want at a price that you can afford may be a little bit hard. It just kind of depends on how much money you have to spend. If your budget is not so constrained, it's probably not a problem. But for me, I've been trying to find an apartment, and it's been almost virtually impossible to find exactly what I want. So you need to be willing to compromise if that's the case. But there are some practical things about even once you've found an apartment that you should know about. One is hot water. And yes, Greece has hot water, but most people here in Greece don't keep their hot water boiler on all of the time because electricity is very expensive. And actually in September, the electricity rates went up by 50%. So not only has rent gone up, but electricity is going up. So the cost of living is getting higher. So with the hot water, it's kind of hard to deal with because you have to think about when you want to take a shower, because it can take anywhere from 10 minutes to 20 minutes, depending on your water heater, to heat up. In my last apartment, it seemed to take forever. So what I ended up doing is I would turn it on as I was getting ready for bed and then wait about 30 minutes and turn it off. So that in the morning, I either only needed to turn it on for a few minutes if it was cold outside, and then I could take a nice hot shower. It also meant that sometimes I waited to do my dishes until the morning so that the leftover hot water from my shower, I could then do my dishes. So that's kind of complicated. Some people have timers on theirs so that you can have it automatically shut off. Mine didn't. So there were a few times that I forgot to turn it off and it stayed on all night. And I'm sure that at some point I had to pay for that. One of the other more practical things that you need to think about is whether or not you're going to open a bank account. I personally have chosen not to open a bank account here in Greece. It is very complicated, and that's part of the reason why you need to think about it, because it is not easy. It shouldn't be a thing that keeps you from moving here, but it's definitely one of those things that you have to think about once you're here. Usually when you go in to get a bank account, they need all sorts of paperwork from you, and it's not like it is in, say, the US, where you would go in with some sort of form of ID and a check, and you would probably walk out with a bank account. You're going to have to make an appointment with the bank first. You can't really just walk into a bank here and set up an account. You need to have your passport, your rental agreement, an electric bill, or a phone bill, you're probably going to have to show either a tax return. Some places are going to ask you for proof of employment. You may need your FME, which is a tax number. And I've heard of various other things being asked for. So you'll want to call the bank when you make that appointment and ask them for all the things that they're going to want to see. And it may be that you don't even walk out of there with a bank account in hand at that time. You may have to go back. And honestly, I have found other ways to get a bank account. And so I'm using sort of an international bank instead of doing it this way. But you may need a bank account here. Say you're getting your pension and you've decided that you don't want to deal with transferring the money. You may need a bank account here. So just remember patience and persistence. Another thing that people do ask me about occasionally is medical care. Now, you may be under the impression that you can come to Greece and go use the public healthcare system, but that's not the case. Not if you're not working. If you're coming here to work, then yes, you will be eligible for that. I am not working, so I am not eligible for that. I actually had to have insurance to get the residence permit. And that means that unless it's an emergency, I can't go use the public healthcare system. I can't make an appointment for a regular checkup with a state doctor because I don't have that number to even register to make an appointment. So even though my doctor may be involved in the public healthcare system and takes that number, I need to pay for the visit. I either need to pay for it out of pocket or have my insurance pay them. And if you were, say, in a car accident and you went to the hospital, they're going to treat you. They're not going to stop and say, no, wait, do you have insurance? But when you leave, they're going to ask for payment. Now, in Greece, it'll probably be significantly less than what it would be, say, in the US, because as most of us know, healthcare in the US is very expensive. But it's not a given that they're just going to treat you for free. And this is mostly in Athens. I have been on an island and had a small emergency, and I went to a local clinic and they did not charge me. But I would say that's more the exception rather than the rule, particularly for an emergency that's serious, like really serious, that you need to have maybe surgery for. So just keep that in mind. And the system works a little bit differently. Not that it works badly. It's a little bit more hoops to jump through when you go to the doctor, even in a private setting. One of my doctors is within a private hospital, so I have to go check in at the hospital and give them all my insurance, and then if I need to pay anything, I pay there. And then I go to the doctor's office, which is just down the street, go see them, and then if the doctor orders any test, I then have to go back to the hospital, and they either make me an appointment or do the test while I'm there. So it's just a little bit different setup than what most, at least Americans, are used to. The other thing that you should consider is taxes. Now, if you're not working in Greece, this may not apply to you, and it also may depend on the kind of visa or residence permit that you have gotten. I'm not going to run through all of the different taxes that may or may not be possible because one, I don't know them. And B, it really depends a lot on where you're from. And again, like I said, what kind of residence permit you're here on. And I don't know enough about all of that to give you a really informed decision, but it is something that you should think about before you come because taxes in Greece are very high and they may be higher than in your home country. And also, if you're from some countries, they may have what they call a tax treaty. So if you continue to pay taxes in your home country, you may or may not have to pay a full amount of tax here in Greece. But again, I can't answer all those questions. You really need to get with an accountant either in your home country or once you've come to Greece to make sure that you're paying the taxes that you need to be paying. One of the other practical things that you need to think about is the weather. I think a lot of people think that coming to Greece, because it's in the Mediterranean, that it's warm like most of the year, but it's not, especially if you're in Athens. You are going to have winter here, not just fall, but winter. Last February, it snowed. And I will include a link in the description box below to the video of the snow. Now, that doesn't happen every year, but in the winter, starting in December, January, February, is the rainy season here in Greece. And frequently it's cold, it's windy, and it's rainy. And that's even more so on the islands. The wind can be very bad. So it's not a tropical destination, and it is not a year-round warm. It may be warmer than what you're used to, but it is not like swim shorts kind of weather all year long. You're going to need a winter coat, and most likely you're going to need gloves, and you're definitely going to need an umbrella. Enough about the less fun things. Because most of us came to Greece and didn't come here to talk about banking, housing, and taxes. We came here to make friends and live the Greek lifestyle. But that may be easier said than done. Making friends with locals, while once they meet you, is pretty easy. Meeting Greeks, particularly in Athens, can be a little bit difficult because they're probably not going to be just coming up to you in places and speaking to you. And unless you're working, you don't really have a natural situation where you're meeting them. Maybe you do if you're here with your family and you have kids and your kids are going to a school where Greek kids go. I personally don't have that situation, so meeting locals to make friends with has been a little bit more difficult. And the expat community that is in Athens is pretty small and isn't super active like I have discovered when I lived in Qatar. It's not to say that you can't meet other expats, but it's also slightly difficult. So you really have to make an effort if you want to meet locals and meet other expats. One of the big things that I find that's an issue, just because I have been an expat before, so I know all of these other things, but this is something that you're going to run into in every new country that you move to, and that it takes time to find what you need. And I don't even mean necessarily like, oh, I can't find, this particular thing at the supermarket. What it means is like, I don't even know which one to go try first. So I'll give you two examples. One is I love black beans. I'm from Texas. I only eat a lot of Tex-Mex, and black beans are just really hard to find in Athens. And I have found them, but sometimes I found them and then I go back and the next time they don't have them and I continue to check and they've just stopped carrying them. Maybe I bought all their back stock and they were like, well, we're not buying them anymore. I don't know. And I've never found dried ones either because I thought, well, maybe I'll just, soak them and make them myself. I have found some at organic store, but obviously they're more expensive and it's nowhere near my house. So when I go, I have to buy several of them and it's heavy. So it's something that if you really want a specific thing or if you want a specific brand of thing, it may be impossible to find here. I love Peter Pan peanut butter and that just doesn't exist here. I found Skippy once. I found Skippy in Athens and I've never seen it again. So what you do is then you buy different brands and you try them until you find the one that you like. And sometimes you buy things and you go, oh, that's not what I wanted. Because even though it says it's peanut butter filled with massive amounts of sugar and it's terrible. So it can take time. The other thing that I've struggled with is where to buy these things, meaning the thing that I need isn't necessarily sold at a store that I would think of. So the other example is that I needed a padlock for my storage unit. And in the US, you could just buy that at the supermarket because most American supermarkets have like everything. And I kind of expected that my supermarket wouldn't have one, but I went to the little mini market near my house. They had them, but they were like luggage locks. And I was like, well, that's really not secure enough for my storage, right? I need a big, heavy bolt. So I went down to the Monastiraki flea market and walked around. And finally, like, somebody was like, oh, what are you looking for? And I told him, and he's like, oh, go to the military supply store, somewhere I would have never considered going. And of course, now that I bought the padlock, I've seen them everywhere. But it's an example of like, sometimes I just don't know where to find the things that I'm looking for. And that's the other thing. Like, none of this, even the weird housing things, should discourage you from moving to Greece if this is where you really want to live. But you need to come in with the right mindset when you move to Greece because things are very different. And I would say this applies to any country that you're moving to. whether or not it's a place that you're familiar with or not, because when you're living in a country, it's different when you're vacationing in a country. Hopefully by now you realize that nothing should really stop you from moving to Greece. Everything usually works out and everything is fine. You just need to have patience and persistence and enjoy your time in Greece. I hope that answers some of your questions, and if not, you're always welcome to leave me a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video.